The low hum of fluorescent lights buzzed in Mike Reynolds' ears as he sat alone in his dimly lit apartment, staring at the half-empty bottle of whiskey on the coffee table. It had been 3 years since he returned from Afghanistan, and the war had followed him home. The silence in the room was suffocating, broken only by the occasional car passing by outside. His hands trembled as he rubbed his face, the familiar weight of exhaustion pressing down on him. No matter how many times he tried to forget, the memories came back, loud, relentless, and merciless. He could still hear the explosions, the shouts of his comrades, the screams. The therapy sessions hadn't helped, the pills barely numbed it, and the nightmares, they were the worst. His phone buzzed, startling him. "Mike, man, you should come down to the center tonight. They're doing an event with the service dogs. It might help." Mike stared at the message from an old army buddy, James. He sighed, running a hand through his short-cropped hair. He had nothing better to do, and deep down, he knew the alternative was spending another night staring at the bottom of a bottle. The veteran's center smelled of fresh coffee and old leather. Mike hesitated at the entrance, his pulse quickening. Large banners hung on the walls with photos of veterans alongside their service dogs, all smiling in ways Mike couldn't remember ever doing. Then he saw them. Dogs, dozens of them, tails wagging, weaving between the crowd, sitting calmly beside their handlers. The room buzzed with quiet conversation and laughter, a rare sound in Mike's world. A trainer approached him, smiling warmly. "First time?" Mike nodded stiffly. "Yeah, just checking things out." The trainer motioned to a nearby black Labrador lying at the feet of another veteran. "Meet Shadow. He's one of our best. Want to give it a try?" Mike hesitated. "I don't know." "Just sit with him," she said gently. "See how it feels." Mike lowered himself onto the floor, and Shadow immediately perked up, watching him with curious, intelligent eyes. Slowly, the dog scooted closer, pressing his warm body against Mike's leg. Mike exhaled, tension he didn't even realize he was holding slowly melting away. For the first time in a long time, he felt grounded. Bringing Shadow home wasn't easy. Mike wasn't sure if he could handle the responsibility. The first few days were awkward. Shadow followed him everywhere, his watchful gaze never leaving Mike's side. At night, when the nightmares came, Mike would wake up sweating and panting, only to find Shadow sitting by his bed, staring at him with those steady, knowing eyes. The first time it happened, Mike had whispered, "You're still here?" Shadow wagged his tail softly and rested his head on Mike's lap. It was in that moment that Mike realized Shadow wasn't going anywhere. The weeks turned into months, and Mike began to notice subtle changes in himself. The walks they took every morning gave him a sense of purpose, a reason to get out of bed. Shadow could sense his anxiety before it even surfaced, nudging him gently and grounding him when he felt an episode creeping in. One afternoon at the grocery store, the sound of a cart crashing to the floor sent Mike spiraling into a flashback. His breathing grew ragged, hands shaking. Shadow, sensing his distress, pressed his body against Mike's leg, grounding him. Slowly, Mike focused on the rhythmic rise and fall of Shadow's chest, his own breathing slowing to match. The world came back into focus. A woman nearby smiled. "He's amazing!" Mike swallowed the lump in his throat and nodded. "Yeah, he really is." Through Shadow, Mike met other veterans with service dogs, each with their own story of survival and resilience. There was Sarah, who once admitted that her golden retriever Scout had saved her from taking her own life during a particularly dark moment. "Without him, I wouldn't be here," she had said, scratching behind Scout's ears. Mike understood. He really did. Slowly, he began opening up, at first to Shadow, then to the group. He spoke about the guilt, the fear, the crushing weight of returning home to a world that no longer felt like his own. And for the first time, he realized he wasn't alone. One winter evening, Mike and Shadow walked through the park as snow gently fell around them. It had become their nightly ritual, a way to clear Mike's mind before bed. But that night, Shadow suddenly tensed, his ears pricked up, and before Mike could react, he bolted toward the frozen pond. "Shadow!" Mike called, running after him. As he reached the edge of the pond, he saw a child, no older than 6, standing dangerously close to the thin ice. Shadow barked frantically, circling the boy and nudging him back. Mike sprinted across the snow, Grabbing the child just as the ice beneath his feet cracked, he pulled the boy to safety, heart pounding in his chest. A frantic mother rushed over, tears streaming down her face. "Oh my God, thank you, thank you." Mike looked down at Shadow, who wagged his tail proudly. "That's what he does," Mike said, feeling something stir inside him. For once, it wasn't anxiety, it was pride. A year later, Mike found himself standing in front of a group of newly returned veterans, Shadow sitting faithfully by his side. "Service dogs aren't just companions," he said, running a hand over Shadow's head. "They're lifelines. They don't judge. They don't ask questions. They just know." The crowd listened intently, some wiping away tears, others nodding in understanding. Mike smiled softly. "I thought I was beyond saving. But Shadow here, he saved me." Life wasn't perfect. There were still tough days, nights when the nightmares clawed their way back, moments when the past felt too heavy to carry. But now, Mike wasn't carrying it alone. Shadow was always there, through the good days and the bad, through the victories and setbacks. And every day Mike was reminded of one simple truth. Sometimes it takes an unspoken bond to remind you that you're still worth fighting for. And in the end, it wasn't just Shadow who saved Mike's life. They saved each other.